So Dave, when you're buying a home, there is so much more than just your mortgage payment that people need to consider. And in regards to your mortgage payment, there's so much that goes behind that of what creates it that people don't realize. And knowing how everything fits together will just give a buyer the confidence in the buying process. So I really wanted to just chat with you a little bit on that. What's the importance of assessing your financial situation as a home buyer?
Yes, I mean, it's critical. It is the most important thing. Before you start deciding, what kind of backyard and what kind of garage, what kind of kitchen you want, you really have to understand how financially it plays in your life. And you know what, Katherine? Most people don't really have a true understanding of their spend. Right? Yeah. Things just happen and they make decisions on the fly emotionally. Well, a house you can't really do that with. So, because you're right, it's so much more than just the mortgage payment, right? There's elements like property upkeep and, everything is everything's just a decision. So sitting down and really putting this stuff on paper, and a good lender will help you do that. It's actually part of the approval process is making sure that we're landing in a responsible budget. And sometimes going through this process with a lender is very enlightening for a customer who has never gone through a budget exercise before. It's like lifting the veil off of them where they're like, oh my gosh, I spend that much.
Yeah.
Or conversely, when you realize that hey, your debt to income ratio is really low, you should have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in the bank and you've got $500. Like maybe there's some problems in some areas of the life where you need, if housing is a choice for you, that you can tighten the belt on.
So I want to talk about that debt to income ratio. So help me understand what is debt to income and why does that matter to lenders?
It's super important. So, people sometimes erroneously believe that when they come to talk to people like me, we are trying to decide what purchase price of a home that they could buy. That could not be further. Frankly, I could care less about what purchase price of a home somebody could buy. What I care dearly about, however, is what is the monthly payment associated with that particular home. Because I can show you a $500,000 house with a $3,000 payment, and I can show you a $500,000 house with a $4,000 payment.
Wow.
That's a big difference between the two. One of them they may qualify for, one of them they may not. So the way that a lender ascertains what a borrower can qualify is by coming up with what their debt to income ratio, which is where we take their gross monthly income. This is not their take home, Katherine. It's their gross, right?
Gross.
Before they pay Uncle Sam, the state of California, FICA, Medicare, all of the things before they eat, before all of that stuff. So we take the gross amount of their income and then we apply to it their anticipated mortgage payment that they're considering buying. And we help them come up with that based on some of the criteria we discuss. And we come up with a ratio between that anticipated house payment plus their current minimum monthly debt for cars, credit cards, student loans, timeshares, you name it, right? And then we come up with a ratio, and different programs have different allotments of how high that ratio can go. So coming up with a realistic debt to income ratio is really the first step in the approval process.
So, and I think we talked about budget. So let's talk about the impact of lifestyle choices on budgeting. And, I have seen where maybe you recommend, hey, why don't you pay off this because your monthly payment on it is this, and that will free up. Explain that.
Yeah, so we look for opportunities, right, when we're going through this analysis with people. So back to the debt to income ratio, right? Like let's just use a quick example. If somebody has $10,000 of monthly gross income, the general rule is that we can use about half of that, so $5,000 towards a mortgage payment plus their minimum monthly bills. Well, if they have a car payment currently that's $650, that's going to eat up a sizable chunk of that $5,000, which means you cannot put that toward a mortgage payment. But if you only have 3 payments left on that car payment, we might work with that customer to come up with an idea of like, hey, let's advance pay off that car. Right? It'll cost you $1,800, but it frees up $600 or $650 that we can now potentially reallocate towards a mortgage payment, helping them qualify for more.
Which that's extremely empowering. So now in regards to payments, when people are looking online, I think so often, and we've touched on this before in previous conversations, but when they're looking online, they think their mortgage payment is going to be because they're looking at this, great house, and then they punch in the numbers and and the website says, oh, your payment's going to be this.
Yeah.
But that's not true.
No, for sure. Those mortgage calculators are designed for one thing and one thing only, to get them to click into getting into that funnel of whomever it's going to lead to. So those calculators are notoriously incorrect. They are not pulling accurate analytics on that specific home. Remember that scenario where I said I can show you a $500,000 at a $3,000 and a $500,000 at $4,000, right? So it's not the price of the home or even the loan structure or the down payment that impacts that. It's things like property taxes, homeowners association dues, PMI, all of those factors. And those mortgage calculators are not equipped to do it. They're just giving like the most standard vanilla analysis with it. And let me tell you how many people represent standard vanilla analysis. Very few, Katherine. So a lot of times people are really shell-shocked when they think they have an idea because they looked on a Zillow calculator, and they come down and sit with us. And when we break it down, they go, oh boy.
Yeah, it can be discouraging.
Yeah, for sure.
But I love that you can really help them set a realistic budget for their home search. So how do you look at the overall budget with them and help guide them with that?
Yeah, so it's the culmination of our analysis, right? We've broken our process down to a real simple 3-step process. The 2 first steps are really the heavy lifting is on them. And I shouldn't use heavy lifting because it's not hard, nor is it heavy. But, they got to give us an application, which we do on a secure online application. They provide some documentation, like some pay stubs, some W-2s, bank statements, things like that validate the information that they put into it. And then the real magic is when they meet with us, either belly to belly or via Zoom. And we do, I know this, brace yourself, it sounds very roses and cotton candy, but we call it the Empower Hour, right? And in that Empower Hour is our platform to be able to do that and much more. We're really approaching credit. We're looking for opportunities, right? I've told you many times, Katherine, our goal is not to get people a loan, it's to get people the best loan. So we're constantly looking for opportunities to improve situations, debt mitigation, right? Budget analysis with them. So it all happens. It's all very integrated. Like think of it as like a holistic approach to this, right? And so, I just highly encourage people when they're selecting a lender out there, if they're not willing to go belly to belly with them and have that complete deep down analysis on what they can do and what the options on in the industry are for them, that might not be the best partner to bring on for this.
One more piece of advice from you before we conclude is, how do you adjust your budget based on market conditions? Because that's something that's a hot topic right now.
Yeah, it is. It's just a choice at the end of the day. Some people have more flexibility than others in that respect, right? There's people that maybe spend too much money on their hobbies. They spend too much money on traveling. They spend too much money eating out, right? Buying a house is a sacrifice, especially if you're a first-time home buyer. It's never going to be as easy as renting, right? Yeah. But renting doesn't get you the legacy and the potential wealth building that owning a home will certainly do. So, so a lot of times it's choices in their spend. A lot of times it's being able to manipulate and work with the way that they are withholding taxes. And we're happy to consult and work with their CPAs and tax preparers as well.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, to help them do it. It has to be fully immersive and integrative, Katherine. This is the biggest financial decision that people will ever make in their life. And when they buy another house, that becomes their biggest decision. This is the pinnacle. So it really is necessary to approach things in a full spectrum. And sometimes the work is done on the credit side. Sometimes the work is done on the income side. Sometimes somebody says, okay, I can't stay at home anymore. It's time to go get a job if housing is important to them.
Yeah.
Right. And sometimes it's just lifestyle changes. So the answer can be different strokes for different folks, but we don't know what we don't know. And it's important that you go through the right analysis to find out.
So true. And really, I think now more than ever, it is so important. I think that if they are somebody who is thinking about taking that leap and they want to know more about home ownership, they just need to call you, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no such thing as too much runway. The more time we have, the better that we can optimize the borrower's situation. Like literally years in advance is what I would recommend.
Well, thank you for giving us this rundown, and I appreciate it. And hopefully people will have that courage to reach out and start that process.
You got it. Thank you, Katherine.